Well, hello, good morning. It's great to be with you guys today, and my name is James. Most people call me Jim Elliott. Welcome to my very barren office here at Northwestern in Chicago. It's barren only because I've actually packed it all up. We leave Chicago November 30th, so we're all very, very excited. I really just want to say thanks very much for giving me this opportunity to join you guys today, albeit I'm sorry it's via video. I am sorry I couldn't be there. But nonetheless, I wish you all a great day here today, and again, thanks for the opportunity to share a little bit of a brief introduction about myself. This is my family, my wife Helen and I. We have 3 children, Emma, Zoe, and Oscar. They're now 13, 11, and 9, and they're all very excited about moving back to Australia and calling Australia home once again. A brief background of myself, and I promise this is probably the last time I'm going to tell you anything about my baseball career. But I was a lucky kid. I actually played baseball for a living for quite a few years and thought for sure I would spend about 15, 20 years in professional baseball and then become a broadcaster or something like that after my career was over. But unfortunately, at a fairly young age, at 23, 22, I had an injury that ended my career and made me think hard and long about what I really wanted to do with my life. So as a younger man with a pretty flash haircut, I decided to go back to school. I became a physical therapist. I went to school in Colorado and practiced clinically in Boulder, Colorado for about 6 years, working with patients who had chronic pain. And I fell madly in love. I think that was the beginning of my passion, I guess, for research and a potential career as a research academic. And it led me to some unique opportunities, I think. I took a job part-time with a company in the UK, and I, as fate would have it, met this lovely lady in the north of Scotland, in Glasgow actually. She's from the north of Scotland. We met in a hospital in Glasgow and got married in Inverness, just outside on her parents' farm. And that was where the life travels began, I guess, if you will. That led me into a PhD opportunity working with some amazing people at the University of Queensland in an interdisciplinary fashion, cross physiotherapy, working with folks in MR physics and radiology. And that was just an amazing opportunity to, I guess, sort of satisfy some of my clinical observations that I had been making as a young physiotherapist. And that ultimately led into a postdoc opportunity. I was working with Professor Gwen Jull. Many of you probably know Gwen on the physiotherapy side of the fence. Michelle Sterling was my postdoc advisor, and Graham Galloway, who's an MR physicist, were 3 very, very influential people in my career, and I'm thankful to still call them friends. Life, early days in Brisbane, was actually quite fascinating. Our little guy decided to come on the scene a little early, 27 weeks, but nonetheless, 3 months in the wards at Royal Brisbane and Women's Hospital, and he's great. And we had a great life in Brisbane. We enjoyed the sunshine in sunny Queensland, and the work was extremely rewarding and tiring at times for sure. But nonetheless, it led me to an amazing opportunity at Northwestern University back in my hometown. I'd been gone for nearly 30 years, and I've been the principal investigator of my own lab here, working in emergency medicine, MR physics, physiotherapy, speech pathology, genetics, etc. We're primarily interested in understanding and getting a better mechanistic understanding of why some, but not others, take longer to recover following trauma, in particular motor vehicle collisions and other types of traumas as well. So we use MRI primarily to look at the brain, spinal cord, and skeletal muscle tissues. I'm very fortunate to have a great lab with some really clever PhD students across biomedical and mechanical engineering, and again, various disciplines throughout medicine and allied health. I primarily spend most of my time, and my interest is in skeletal muscle physiology and understanding sort of changes and compositional changes in folks who are taking longer to recover and how they relate to sort of the clinical picture. We don't just look at neck muscles, we look at muscles throughout the body, and that's opened up a wealth of opportunities to work across many different designs of research and different questions of research and understanding how disease and or pathology relates to muscle changes and maybe contributes to those muscle changes and what that means to us from a recovery perspective. But I also get super fascinated by the mechanisms of understanding these processes. And one of them is spinal cord imaging. And I won't go into great detail here, but we work with colleagues across the world in understanding how we can quantify specific changes in specific pathways and relate that back to the clinical picture, be it motor output, be it sensory deficits, whatever it may be. So we've done a fair bit of work in that, and I so look forward to continuing that work in collaboration with lots of folks across the world and certainly in Sydney. The other thing that gets me super excited is this whole idea of contributing to this research enterprise across allied health. And I'll just frame this as a sort of question around our house and give you a bit of a story. Based on everything I've told you about my background, my family, my training, my work, my passions, this is our house. So it's an old 1895 farmhouse in the western suburbs of Chicago. We've got a nice little plot of land. It's a small, pokey little house, to be honest with you, but it's a wonderful house. And we've just sold it to a nice young couple. But if you look at those different views of the house, and based on the information I've given you, could you actually, with confidence, tell us the color of our sofa without opening the front door? Now, clearly the answer is probably all over the place, and you could make some good guesses. And I think that's sort of similar to clinical practice. Not always, but sometimes. And I wonder, can we actually do better? Can we actually collect the data that will help us identify the primary drivers of someone's experience with their pain, with their disease, with their diagnosis? And thinking about the different domains. Now, this is just one example. Frankly, it's a little bit centric towards head and neck trauma, but it could be across many different pathologies. So if we think of the different domains that could be driving this, maybe we can get a better idea of various phenotypes of people and what treatments actually need to be provided for these patients. For this case, this patient seems to have more of a nociceptive input based on the tools that we use to collect that data. So they might do quite well with conservative care. Another patient with the same diagnosis and the same injury actually doesn't seem to have those same domains, or those primary drivers. In this case, he has more of a cognitive driver, and that's used, or that's collected through validated outcome measures that don't burden you, they don't burden me, they don't burden the patient. So we actually use the right tools at the right time to figure out what could be the primary driver. Now, it's not perfect, but at least it actually hopefully narrows down some of the variability. And I think of this, and I draw from the work being done at Intermountain Healthcare in Utah about developing a learning healthcare system. So we collect the data, we share that data with you, the clinician, the expert, and you, the clinician expert, can help us actually take that data and alter the care pathways for these particular patients. Collect more data based on those alterations, share that data once again, and then alter the protocols further. So in due time, you're developing this sort of feedback loop, if you will, which ultimately creates a measured reality of our clinical practice across allied health. So I quite like this idea, and I think what it does for me is it takes away sort of this siloed approach. I'm not saying that's what happens. Certainly where I am here, we're very interdisciplinary, and I get the sense from talking to lots of you already that it is a very interdisciplinary effort across allied health. But I think about different ways of working together, and I'll give you just one example of probably many that I could share with you, but for the sake of time, this was a study that was born out of just a chance finding, to be honest with you, working with speech pathology, psychology, medical imaging, and radiographers, and physiotherapy. In a previous study of chronic whiplash, we had this chance finding in changes of the size and the shape of the oral pharynx that we found on MRI, and we didn't really know what to make of it, but it offered an opportunity to knock on the door of my speech pathologist friend at the University of Queensland, Deb Theodoris. And Deb led me to Liz Ward, and Liz Ward led me to Jerry Logeman, and Jerry Logeman led me to Bonnie Martin Harris. So now we have these opportunities to combine these different methods across disciplines, look at pharyngeal changes over time of the anatomy of the pharynx, and characterize or get a better picture of what's happening with these patients after whiplash who now complain of difficulties with their swallowing, they complain of difficulties with voice projection, and it's generating new hypotheses and new research opportunities. But I think what gets me super excited is that we've added in our geneticists, and they've actually allowed us to quantify from blood banks and blood markers and looking at various microRNA candidates that actually could help explain this. And we have identified one microRNA candidate of a peritraumatic microRNA around the emergency medicine department time to get a better handle on who may develop some of these signs and symptoms. This radar plot approach maybe allows us to display our data and actually get a better handle on what seems to be the primary driver. So it is an example where we've worked together, and I think this example provides impetus for all stakeholders to work together to speak a common language of outcome measures, to characterize the patient at risk for poor recovery, ultimately reduce costs, and improve treatment outcomes, hopefully, by matching the treatment for the particular patient. Another exciting bit to this, though, is I think it provides new research opportunities for all of us to work together and ultimately informing clinical care. So with that said, I just want to say have a great Allied Health Symposium today, and here's to lots of success in the future. And I so look forward to arriving on December 2nd and getting right to work and having a bit of fun with everybody. And we will see you all very soon. And for those of you who are wondering in the audience, our sofa is actually gray.